Dave Hatch, one of my longtime friends, joins the podcast today. What I've loved about Dave throughout the years that I've known him, he's always been so kind, positive, hilarious, genuine, and he's always just cared about being the best version of himself. And that's what I've always really appreciated about Dave. This podcast, we really dove into our love for Dungeons and Dragons, and by God, was that awesome. Because I know Dave had played, but he's never really expressed his thoughts or shared his feelings on why Dungeons and Dragons is so special to him. And being able to listen to why it makes him so happy was such a joy and pleasure. So I hope you enjoy this podcast with my very good friend, who I love very much, Dave Hatch. Dun, 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 dun. Dave Hatch has joined the podcast. I am so very excited.
Is that your intro? Is that
Yeah,
like
that's the intro to every episode. So when some guests aren't named David, it just sounds weird. They're like, no, my name's Mike, not Dave.
Whoa, wait a minute. Hang on real quick. Is that a lemon seltzer water?
Hey, it is orange pineapple Wegmans, Danny Wegman.
Ginger.
That's what's up, dude. That's what helped me cut down so much on like sodas and stuff.
Oh, I know. I love it. It's amazing. I feel the same way. I feel like once you get into that groove of not like drinking like this like sugary sweetness of a soda, and you like keep, fulfilling that space with like the seltzer water, it kind of like becomes soda for you.
Yeah.
Like for me, it's like
the
people are like,
texture.
"Oh, you want like a soda or something?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, do you have like, like a pineapple orange seltzer
Ooh,
water?" Like
fancy.
like-
Fancy. Nah, man. Yeah, no, I definitely still drink. Like I'm a guy who likes a rum and coke, but
Right.
I definitely have cut off way more than I have. Dude, in high school, that was like, I think my blood was about 60% Mountain Dew, 30% actual blood, and then what's the right, like 10% water.
Dude, don't throw math. You didn't invite me onto this podcast to throw questions about math at me. You're gonna be
Dave,
asking
I'm glad
me
you're in the hot seat.
percentages.
Now that you're in the hot seat, this has all been a part of the ploy to bring you onto the show for, ladies and gentlemen, Cory's math quizzes.
The like the Who Wants to Be a Millionaire like song goes on. First
Saskatchewan
yeah.
is a province of what Canada state?
Can I get a definition of state? Where's
Dave,
Canada?
Mostly I brought you on the podcast because, listen, this is my real goals. I want to hear what's going on in your D&D world right now. You're playing a campaign with Danny, right?
So my campaign with Danny, it was more of like a one-off.
Okay.
But I think because Danny just got a place and he's setting up, he is like so excited about creating a space and an atmosphere for all of us to be able to do like, go there, like do like sessions pretty consistently.
So you guys are taking some time off while he gets settled in the house?
It's honestly, it's been a hiatus from a lot of the campaigns that I've been playing, which has been awful because I love it so much. And
are
it's
you
funny
saying
too.
multiple? Are you campaigns plural? Are you playing in somebody else's?
Yeah, so my buddy Clay is also like a DM, and actually he was the DM for a couple campaigns that we have been doing over the past 3 years.
Whoa.
It started about 3 years ago, or it might be 2 years, 2 or 3 years ago. It's hard to. I feel like the COVID year kind of like extended everything. It wasn't like an actual
into
year,
a blur,
right? So obviously there was a hiatus for that because we didn't want to be like meeting in person and stuff for that stuff. But before that, we had sessions start relatively shortly after like the new year. We went in we would meet maybe once or twice a month, and we would like go through this campaign. And it was phenomenal because it lasted so long, but it was always so like high energy and high imagination and very like, pull you in and keep you guessing and keep you moving.
I
So
don't mean
it
to interrupt you, but was this
No,
a
absolutely.
homebrew campaign or was this
Um,
something from a book?
so we started with what's called oh, I believe it's called no, because 5e is what we did. Because so we started with a more simplistic version of D&D to get us all
Whoa,
like
that's cool.
into it. It has a name, and the name is slipping me right now, but um,
5e is the current edition, right?
right, yeah, 5e is what we play now, but beforehand we were doing something that basically like, it gives you like your stats and it pulls you into the game, and it basically just teaches you how to play Dungeons and Dragons from, for
Whoa.
Clay it was a DM standpoint, and for us it was, the character standpoint. But I think what it really wanted you to do is to get in there, you know, get your imagination flowing, get creative, and like understand the idea. Like,
Yeah.
because, when we're kids, we, we can pick something up and it could be a single object. Imagine you're a kid and you pick up a Lego. I mean, that Lego teleports you to a whole new world. Like,
All of
you
a
know,
sudden that Lego brick is a pirate ship
right,
or a
exactly. So
spaceship.
it's just like, but think about how easy it is. Like to just be teleported to somewhere as like when you were a kid. Like
Right.
how
And that's
easy
what
was it to just get lost?
yeah, in your imagination, right?
Right. So it's kickstarting that again because
Yeah.
as adults, we don't really have that same eye. We don't
Yeah.
have that like creative mind anymore. It's filled with ones and zeros and
Yeah.
crazy Corey's math
Crazy
equations.
Corys, baby. Yeah, no, that's I heard I think Brendan Lee Mulligan said that it was like a lot of times people don't try things because they like know what it's like. They're like, ooh, triathlons. I don't want to do that. Sounds like a lot, right? And it's
Easy.
gonna be a lot of work, right? Or you're like pick up guitar. You're like, ooh, that's gonna be. They have this idea of what it is in their head, but with D&D, I think people think like it's like they have this certain idea that it's D&D is this when really it's just a game. It's just a fun low pressure game if you have playing with friends. And it's
Absolutely.
like that's what it is, right? It's us using our imagination and totally
It
separate from what you think.
Right.
Take those
It
judgment
pulls
walls
you
down.
into like, because it's like, I don't know, for me it's the same way like if I watch like a movie or if I'm playing a really like good game that I've just
Right.
gotten or something. Like, you get so enveloped in what you're doing that without even realizing it, the world around you just disappears and you are this character that you're controlling, or you are that character. I'm Spider-Man swinging like through the like houses and stuff and saving Mary Jane and all that
Yeah.
stuff. Or I'm this dude like running around like chopping zombies all up and stuff like that.
Yeah,
And
right, right.
you get so enveloped and stuff like that. And with Dungeons and Dragons, it's the same thing. You disappear. Like, everything outside of the room you're in is gone, and it's an
Right.
amazing feeling to really feel like you have that imagery in your brain of what you used to have as a child, because it's not as easy as it used to be. it's
You're
it's
right.
it's nuts.
When did you start getting into D&D heavily? Because it sounds like it's been the past what 3 years you said when you started playing with this guy.
Yeah, absolutely. So i I always loved the idea of Dungeons and Dragons, but I always knew, like, into what you were saying, like, whenever somebody would bring up like Dungeons and Dragons or say like, "Hey, what if we played Dungeons and Dragons?" I always think to myself, that sounds so cool, but I'm so nervous because like then you see like a character sheet, or you
Yeah.
see, like you see like the Dungeons and Dragons like player handbook that's like, thick,
And you're like,
like
that's so many rules.
you're like, "Wait a minute. I haven't read a book since I was in middle school. What am I doing here?"
Now I gotta read a
Like
goddamn encyclopedia. But
right.
it's not like that. It's not.
It's fun, it's really oh man, it recreates that creativity that you don't feel like you have anymore.
That creativity, that is a great that was, it's funny because that's what my mother-in-law said to me a few months ago. I've been playing D&D more and more, at least talking about it more with people, and, she was like, "That game has so many rules." And I go, "Yeah, you're right, and I don't know about half of them." And she goes, "Well, what do you mean you don't know half of them?" Well, I don't we don't have to use a good majority of them, and then sometimes if it's questionable, we just are like, we'll make up something and just go with it
Right.
half the
It's like
time. We'll look it
it's
up
like
later.
real life too. I mean, think about all the rules or all the things that exist in real life.
Right.
Like, yeah, we have encyclopedias to give us that information. It's the same in Dungeons and Dragons, except in Dungeons and Dragons, your DM is either like following like this a story, a pre-written story, or completely making it up on the spot.
Which
So
is
it's
a
like
baller move, by the way, to, like, come into a session, like, there's some people who, like, say they homebrew, right? And they create their own, like, adventures or modules to play, but just, like, only just freeballing it, like, taking it a step further and not even thinking, "Okay, I need this great big town, I'll think of it on the spot." That is some gangster level shit right there,
dude,
right? Because
I
then it's just like, you're going to a major city, and you're like, "Oh, crap, I gotta think of a name."
right.
Starfall, that is the capital of the Four Swords Coast.
And
Like,
I'm like,
just
"Wait, can you repeat that so I can write that down?" And they're like, "I don't remember what I said." I
that's a
don't
baller move to have to
remember.
come up with that stuff, like, on the spot, not have that ready.
Right.
I don't think I know anybody who plays like that.
Well,
That would be
so
something special.
that's how Clay DMs, where what he
That's cool.
does, he like the current like session that we haven't like played in a little while is a homebrew. He basically takes like snippets of ideas from here and there, and he kind of like creates his own story.
That's
So
cool.
what he does is he brings to the table like obviously you have like A to B. A is where you start and B is where the story goes to, where you have all these sub trails that go all over the place in any direction because you never know where your characters are going to, move. You never know
Right.
what they're going to want to do. Um, so for him, what he does is he says it's his homework where he will take like what's going to happen in this session. He'll make notes for everything, any possible npcs we might encounter, any like villages we might go to. Like he really tries to like get a big broad spectrum of things that we could run into, while also utilizing a lot of the things online that there already are, like pre-builts for
Yeah.
maybe encounters or something like that, like
It's like
while
a
you're
monster
traveling.
mash.
Right, exactly. So he'll basically draw up a plan of what's going to happen, then have the session. Then after the session ends, he takes everything that happened and kind of like rewrites or moves things around to make sure that they still make sense in the story and that they can continue on, while
That's pretty cool.
also emphasizing like the things that we did in our last like session. I mean,
That's
it,
pretty that's dope, dude. How many people are in that group?
so um there's usually 5 or 6 of us.
Wow, that's a big party.
Yeah. So that is like another thing in D&D where it can get a little like strenuous because there's 6 of us, and everybody, in battle, everybody has a turn,
Yep.
and when we're in like a city or something, we might not always be together. So
Yeah.
it does make sessions last a little bit longer, but I mean, I
Right.
think everybody has so much fun, and there are a lot
That's
of
pretty cool.
people who play Dungeons and Dragons who, I mean, for me, I always try to be a very like charismatic character. Like I try
Yeah,
to
I
be a
was gonna ask
character.
who are you playing in that campaign? Because I just
I
think of, like, if I had to make a bard-like character, I would flavor him with Dave Hatch
right.
personality.
So I think that it's So I have to tell you one thing before I go into that.
If you tell me right now that you've played a bard, I'm gonna shit my pants.
No, that's a character that I want to play that I haven't. So, like, I'm not even kidding. The first character that I played was this character called Colfang. And it might sound familiar. Danny's done a bunch of stuff with it, maybe not, but so Colfang was unfortunately he has perished.
Rest in peace, Cole
um
thing.
but so that was Kolfang was like my first real character in Dungeons and Dragons. Now, for me, I wanted to make a character who was kind of shy, kind of timid, standoffish, kind of like,
How are you timid with the name Colefang?
okay, so his race is he is oh man, and I'm drawing a blank on the like actual name, but it's basically like a lizard society that lives
Mm.
underground.
Oh, yeah,
But
yeah.
they're like, I mean, they're like
Conti?
chaotic evil naturally or something like that. But
Uh,
but I basically my story was I wasn't like my mother was being like halted away, and my character who basically was still an egg, like the mother was holding on to an egg, and being halted away in like a prison gate, being just like brought away. And it's one of those scenarios where she's holding on to the egg, the crate hits like a rock or something, she stumbles and the egg falls out of the carriage like onto the side road into like a brush or something like that. And she's freaking out, and they're the guards are just like, back, you vile beast, like stabbing her and like getting her to be quiet and stuff. And so like that kind of like ends the relationship of Kolfang and his mom. Like he doesn't know of that. So a wizard comes and like finds Kolfang and basically like knows the like finds an egg on the ground. The egg is like ridiculously hot to the touch because I'm a like a basically a fire lizard. And
oh, okay.
I he's seen this, he knows what this is, so he takes it in. And fast forward, I basically raised by this human wizard
That's
who
badass.
and it's
You
so
said that character was like the first real character you got to play.
yes.
Was it special to you because you played him the longest, or because the story had like the most impact on you?
So my favorite thing in the world, like freelance ish, is to just like write stories. And D&D gave me an outlet to do that with.
Whoa.
So when I knew that I was going to be playing Colfang, I basically wrote like a 3 or 4
I
page
love that.
intro story for
Yeah.
Colfang, which Danny for my birthday one year went on like Fiverr or something like that and had a bunch of people do like illustrations and like actually read off my like there's a YouTube video. Like after this
Oh,
is over, I'll have to show it to you because it's
yeah.
it's really phenomenal. But it's it's it was just like it's another one of those outlets that kind of gives me that like I disappear. Like
Yeah.
when I start writing a backstory for a good character, I'm like I'm putting my heart and soul
Sucked
into it.
in.
I'm sitting in there and I'm like, writing, and before I
Where
know
do
it,
you
I have
pull your,
4 pages.
influences from? Is this just like a freestyle, or is it like a
It's
movie character, you base it off of TV show character?
So I think unintentionally I always pepper a little bit of myself into a character because I always want to be able to relate to my characters. I
Right.
always want to feel like I'm not like completely in the dark when I'm playing, like when I'm role playing as a character, which therein lies like the issue later in the actual sessions when I created the character. But I think I take like my current life and how I'm feeling or something like that, and I kind of like put it into this character because it always feels good to take an emotion, put it onto something else, and play out that emotion through Dungeons and Dragons. It's
Yeah.
basically like an emotional outlet.
Yeah.
um
Do you
but
think that is what draws you to Dungeons& and Dragons the most, is like the role playing, or do you like the crunchy numbers combat.
Oh, it's absolutely the role playing.
Yeah,
I get so like sucked into it, and playing Kolfing was actually kind of hard for me because he's like a shy character. And when we were in an instance where an NPC was talking to us and none of the other characters, or like, nobody really, like any other people at the table knew like how to like talk, I was always like, I would always kind of like be in the back and be like, Kolfing steps forward and he kind of like raises his hands and he opens his mouth. But Kolfing was a character that was like deemed, like an abomination. So
yeah,
me being like the charismatic person that I am in real life, it was very hard for me to play a shy character that
yeah.
always wanted to kind of speak up, but would always get like, oh, like what is that thing? Don't let that thing talk to me. Like don't let that thing talk. And I would always get like, Clay would always like use the NPCs to push me back and like push me and like try to like, make
Oh,
it so
because
that
you're like this only like weird like lizard
I
person.
right,
Oh
exactly.
shit. Yeah.
So, a salamander, or it was a salamander. I there's got to be like I wish I could remember like the name of it, but
That's okay. It's no big deal.
yeah, but it's really like it's fun to make a character that you know you want to imagine yourself in their shoes. I
Yeah.
feel like too a lot of times go the opposite of like how I'm feeling, and I'll be like, okay, I want to play out somebody who's doing this, or somebody who's doing that. So I think it's a really cool way to change it up and put yourself in the shoes of things. And
Yeah. I find it very um I hope I'm using this word correctly. Cathartic?
I think
I
so,
hope I'm
yeah.
using it. It's like a relief, a mental relief to like a release to play Dungeons and Dragons because it's this like form of escapism. Like I play a dwarf paladin in our campaign. Mike plays a human wizard, and when I was drafting Ragnar up, I just knew like I wanted to play like someone who would always do like the right thing, who would be like right and just, and always try to do good by things, and only because like it would make it easier for me to envision me being in his shoes as opposed to like a villain who's holding Fandolin hostage and is gonna blow it up with a bomb or whatever. You know what I mean? Like I
Yeah.
would have a hard time associating being in that person's shoes. But Ragnar, on the other hand, the guy who kind of does the right thing, who does is a cool adventurer. Like who doesn't want to do all these cool, like slay a bunch of dragons and stuff like that? Like
Right.
this, you know. To me, it's like a release.
In my 3 years of playing Dungeons and Dragons, I think I've only ever fought a dragon once.
Really,
Yeah,
really. Well, I
that's always
that's
like
that's the thing when it's like we always play written campaigns. Like we started with the starter kit, which was the Lost Mines of Phandelver, and then we moved in to man, what was the one we just did? Because I think there was one more, and then we did Tiamat,
okay.
the Rise of Tiamat. I feel like we're just about to finish the Rise of Tiamat, and I don't know if you've seen Tiamat, but that's this like six-headed dragon.
Oh yeah.
So it's like very like it's interesting because it's like political discourse and like cool combat because it's cultists and the cultists are like trying to collect a mass to raise Tiamat. It's very cool and we've had a chance to play and fight. I think we're up like 4 dragons now, but that's only because this module is written for dragon encounters. I mean, you're gonna fight a 5-headed dragon. You're gonna fight a couple dragons on the way.
Right. We had
And
a we had a a session, or well, not a session, but a like a run through, or a campaign. That's the word I was looking for. We had a campaign where we were doing something kind of similar, but we were looking for like different giants. Like there
ooh,
were each elemental like giants, and in order for us to get to where we needed to be, or for the Giants to help us, we had to go through like different sections of the campaign and find different elemental giants and get them out of the situation that they were in, and like free them from like the prisons that they had been like, incarcerated in. And
Right.
that
You're
was a
collecting
really,
the Infinity Stones
yeah.
of giants, or
Right.
collecting the Infinity Stones of the mask.
But
Is
it's
what it
funny
sounds
though
like.
that you say that, like when with your character, like how you want to like do good, because that was really like the idea that I had too, also behind Colfang, because inside of him was so much like evil, because that's just how, like,
Those
that's
people are
right,
like
his
the
people,
salamander
his
people are
right,
naturally
his
evil.
race, they're evil, they're bad. It would be so easy for him to be aggressive or to be, but he
Right.
tried so hard to always be, like righteous and like positive. And even though he was like, casting like black flames that came from like within him, that was like his magic that he used, was like
Was he a
internal like
sorcerer?
flame magic. Yeah, absolutely.
Nice.
Um, and it was that battle between like the evil inside of you and the want to always do good that
Yeah.
like was a really strong character development.
So how did you like RP that throughout the session?
Oh, I mean, there were so many. Oh
Like
God,
just like
I'm
different
like,
moments that
I'm
Clint
like,
would set up?
it's no, you're asking me, and I'm like remembering all these like little snippets in the campaign where like Colfang was like, and that's my favorite thing too, like the RP of it all. Like, I love going like all out. Like, I don't know how you are in Dungeons and Dragons, but like if I'm in like an actual like moment where my character would like sort of like snap or have like an internal monologue about like what's going on right now, I will literally like push back my chair and like stand up in front of the table,
I
and
love
I'll be
that.
like, I think that like kind of like flurries back into the whole like just getting lost in it, because that's
Yeah.
like, so my Colfang found a salamander at one point, and like the salamander, like, just a small salamander that like crawled on Colfang and was like essentially, I think it wasn't meant to be anything, but it was one of those things where, well, I was like, Colfang tries to like, pet the salamander and like try to like, like feed it or something like that. And, the DM was like, all right, like, roll for, like
Roll
how
for
well,
feeding,
right, literally.
animal
So
handling.
boom, like nat 20, nat 20, nat 20, nat 20. I was on fire with the
That's
salamander.
awesome.
So throughout the campaign, I had a salamander on my shoulder because I rolled so well that I
That's awesome.
constantly had like a tiny little salamander. Um, so now herein lies the part where Colfang, this person who has so much like pent up evil and like, hatred inside of him, who is always doing good and stuff, we were in like this desert, and all of a sudden this like firestorm was like running through, and everybody was rolling for like hiding. Like, we all had just received these like basically like turtle shells that like were kind of like, big turtle shells that people were rolling to hide. People were rolling to like
Oh, to
dig
like
holes
protect
in the
themselves
ground.
from the storm.
Right. So Colfang has a natural immunity to fire. So Colfang was just helping other people get into their like, helping them so that
Right.
they were safe, because he knew that he was going to be fine. So, this firestorm rolls over us, and I have to roll to see how like the firestorm affects me. And I rolled a nat 1.
Yeah.
And so and so my DM, I mean, Clay is phenomenal with like imagery and like really like bringing you into like what's happening. He's like, the flames subside, and the clouds of smoke like move away. You know, people start lifting the shells up from where they are, and they're like coming to, and Colfang is just looking around and like, looking at himself and realizing that everything's fine and nothing bad happened. And then and then the DM goes, but Colfang notices that there's no longer a small voice on his shoulder. And
No.
and so and so the salamander had essentially like was like basically a crispy chicken nugget.
Oh, a
so
crispy salamander nugget.
so in Cole Fang's like rage, this was another thing too that me and Clay kind of figured out, where there would be sort of like this rage meter, because if Cole Fang would get like too angry, he would sort of like, you know, his evilness would kind of take over, or
Interesting.
it would kind of like explode out of him in rage. It's like that scene
Interesting.
from Hercules when, Hades is like, "Ah!" and like the blue flames just like shoot
Oh,
up
yeah, yeah.
everywhere. And I mean, that was essentially like Cole Fang's like eyes would kind of like turn black, and he would just be like covered in like flames and stuff.
Right.
So when that happened, I had to roll for like my anger check, and I did awful for it. So remember I was like, so Colfang, like, he was basically throwing a tantrum in a sense, and he was
Yeah.
like, fire was going out, and everybody kind of like ducked back down into their little holes and stuff. And I took the salamander off my shoulder, and then I looked up to my DM, and I was like, I want to like cast like a flame in my hands, like holding my hands like this. I was like, and he goes, all right, roll for it. And I roll a nat 20, and
Ah,
and
don't you
so
love that?
that is like and it's even better when it's in one of those like moments where you're like, God, if I could roll, like a nat
Yeah.
20 right now, that would
Yeah.
be like, something amazing. So I do. Like, I roll a nat 20. And so all the like anger and fire that is like forming through Colfang, like generates through his hands, and you see all the fire in his hands, and his like skin turns like dark or like bright red as his hands and his face turn red. And all of a sudden he like stops because the anger subsides, and he opens his hands, and there's like a lime green gem in his hands. So, but hear me out. So, one of the I think Danny's character had like could like metal manipulate or something like that, where he could kind of like turn, or actually I think Colfang could do it, because Colfang had like warm or like hot touch, and he could like melt down things and like
Ah,
turn them into like crude. So I had this gem in my hand, and it was glowing. It was like a glowing gem that basically like, I found like I had like some silver or something in, and I melted it, and I basically turned it into a necklace, and I wore it for the rest of the game. But every now and then, like, the Clay would kind of like bring that necklace into the game and be
yeah.
like, you hear whispers from your necklace, and it calms you, and your anger subsides,
Yeah.
and you know that like the salamander is still with
But
you.
but I'll tell you, dude, those rolls, the nat ones or the 20s, all right? Like, if you don't know D&D, people at home, a 1, worst thing that could happen, you have to auto fail on whatever you're trying to do. 20 being the best, right? Those kind of moments really can shape a game and give you those opportunities to role play like that, right?
It's difficult too, because the first town that we were in no longer exists because of nat 1 rolls.
Ah,
Like,
see though? But that's world changing, you know what I mean? Or else
right.
you'd get so many cookie cutter, like every time you'd play, but every time you play is vastly different. And I guarantee you, if you gave that same start to Mike, Dennis, and I, we would take it in a completely different direction too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's nuts to me how luck, you know, and just like you're saying, can completely change the course. Like,
Right.
you think you're going in this direction, and then you're accidentally turned around because you rolled a nat 1, and now somebody that was going to help you hates you, and
Yep.
like and will is trying to like murder you now. So you're like, you got to run in a different direction. Yeah, oh man, it's so fun to just like to have that like creativity, but also never know where it's gonna go. Like,
Were you a theater kid in school?
no, but I always
No.
wanted to be. I
So
was
this is like a
so
that's why I
afraid
thought
of
you're
it.
you're so charismatic. That's why I thought like maybe you were doing a lot of plays or something because it kind of fits the bill for that. for that interest, you know?
Yeah, it's funny to me too, and because when growing up, I always wanted to be involved and stuff like that, but it just was one of those things that I always thought like, I don't know, I feel like it was more or less just like I could never find that in, or like I never had somebody that kind of was like, do it, like go
Yeah.
do it, you got this.
And
So
encouraging. That's what I like. I'm thankful that I got to play with like Dennis and Mike. Like we played once before, right? Like a
yes,
long fucking time ago, right?
oh
Just
yeah.
once, but nobody knew the rules. We were just making shit up, right? Yeah, that but like though playing with people gave me the comfort of like, should I try a voice out? Should I try acting my character with more emotion, like you like to stand up or perform them a little bit? And it's kind of nice when you could just do it in front of friends. Because I mean, who cares?
Oh
Dave,
yeah, well, I
Dave, you're
mean,
gonna
who
stand up
cares
and act out in
anyways?
front of your character. I'm gonna love that. I'm gonna love every second of it. Please
Oh,
do it. You know what
absolutely.
I mean? Like though,
Yeah.
that's the kind of stuff that it's. But when you play with a group of people you might not know, might make it a little harder.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. Right.
That so not to like sway like in a completely different direction, but I actually took a class at my work. It was called Dale Carnegie, and it's a public speaking class. And
Interesting.
basically we go through and they just kind of like, give you tips and tricks on how to like control yourself and like control like your like sort of like emotions in a public speaking area, because
Interesting.
I mean, people get so nervous when they have to
Yeah.
speak in front of other people, and I totally get that. I am the same way, but I like take those nerves and I'm like, this is what I'm riding on. You know what I mean? Like I'm gonna take these
You take
nerves
those nerves and you just make everybody
and
laugh
I
with them.
push it. Yeah, that's that. And I had a
Was that
speech
your
about that
biggest
too.
takeaway throughout that whole class? Like, what was your biggest takeaway?
So the biggest takeaway for me was that you you really can't overthink it, because if you are like stressing about talking in front of like public and stuff like that, you're only going to drive your nerves more. You have to like, we would always start like each session by like breathing in, and breathing out, and the timer starts, and you would just start, you would start sort of quote unquote riffing, if you will. You would just start like, basically every week we had a topic, and you would do a 90-second speech in front of like a class of 30. um, but
Oh, interesting.
it was phenomenal. I mean, I won 5 awards
Oh,
in the whole like thing. I won a plaque for highest achievement in the entire like thing. Like I was like,
what on earth?
at the end, everybody voted for who they thought was the best at like speaking publicly,
I
and I
love
won
that.
it. And oh man, but
Was that recently?
that was that was end of 2019, beginning of 2020. Or
So
wait,
that was
yes, yeah. So
so
it's
that you had
about,
already been playing D&D by then.
so they invited me in, and then I went through the class, and I got my awards and everything, and then a month later they contacted me and asked me if I would be a coach for the class, like if I would help train people who are new in the class. And I
Yeah.
did it, and I went through that, and then afterwards they were like, hey, do you want to be a coach again? And unfortunately I had just moved to like a new store, so I was like, I have to like sit out, but it's
Yeah.
something that I'm like really like passionate about, so I
Is
feel like
public speaking?
absolutely.
Wow. What is
it's
it
uh
about it that you love so much?
it's the thrill, it's the nerves that you take, that you feel like you just feel so scared when you stand
Yeah,
in front of people, and you
100%. You can
you
feel your
don't
heart in
know.
your throat.
Right, exactly. And for me, that is like, I mean, to feel is to live. You know what I mean? Like when I'm up there and I feel like, my chest is tight and my heart is pounding, like that's when I'm on top of the world. Like, and I love like talking, especially like if it's something that I can, you know, go off of, or if it's something that I'm passionate about, I can talk forever. Like I love it. It's amazing to me, which is why I'm awful at dates because I just talk too much. I'm just kidding. But it's that excitement. It's that excitement that you feel, and as soon as you're done, it's like a wave of pressure goes off of you, and
Right.
you feel so accomplished because, and I mean, it can
You feel
be
refreshed.
right, exactly. You feel so good because you just like pushed yourself to break through that feeling of, like that, of your body just being like, don't do this, like step back, like move
Right.
away from it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And have you done any DMing to use like the public speaking?
So I want to DM, but I've always been a character. I've definitely always been um I've always been a character because I feel like I would need to know more about like the Dungeons and Dragons world in a
Can I
whole.
propose something to you?
Yeah, absolutely.
I say we all do an adventure and you DM for Danny, me, Spooches,
Yeah, I'd be down for that.
right? Dude, we would be in. And what better to like break in your DM skills with us?
Just a bunch of buddies
Yeah.
who
Are you kidding me?
will be there to, like help out if I get
Yeah,
stuck. Like I think,
right.
yeah, no, that'd be cool. I
We'll
like
just
that
fuck it.
idea.
You don't know a rule? It's all right, dude. We'll just Google search it real quick. And here we go. We got an answer. Right back on track. Let's
Right.
hear it, Dave. I feel like you would do really good with DMing because there's no more just one character, Dave. There's
Right.
multiple characters. I think you would enjoy, like, maybe you can't be in the position of the evil, big bad evil guy, but
Right.
you're not playing him for 3 years straight. You're just
Right.
dipping your toes in him for a little bit and kind of getting to try your like acting things out with each little character. I feel like you would
Absolutely.
love that.
It's like a lot of improv. Like it's just like it's
100%.
going with the flow, and
Bro,
like
that is why I love Dungeons and Dragons, is the improv. I like the moments of just think about our friendship, our entire life has just been jokes, and then when someone would say something, we would then just add to it, and then we would laugh, and then Dave would
oh,
add to that story to make it even more grandiose and hilarious.
and
And
then
then
it
we'd
keeps
all laugh.
going until it doesn't make sense to anybody except for
Exact
all of us because
That's
we
what
were there.
yeah, that's what you're doing, right? You're just like it's like a give and like Dave in his character, Cole Fang does this cool thing with a salamander, and then it's like you got to riff off of that and give him something back, Like I love those kind of moments, and I don't know why that is so appealing to me. Maybe it goes back to the escapism.
Yeah, absolutely. I think
Maybe
really
that's
that's what it's all about.
so. It looks like you're going to be DMing for us then.
Yeah, I look forward to it. But
What
I'm nervous. But you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take those nerves. I'm going to shove them
channel
deep
it?
down. I'm going to go full force. You know what I mean?
I'm gonna jam them deep down inside me, and they're gonna come straight out of me. That's what I mean, bro. That's what I'm saying. So is there a character that you would love to play that you have not yet played?
Okay, so this ties back to the bard
Okay.
because okay,
Oh, the
so
bard that is you.
so hear me out. Like every character that I've ever played, I always try to play a character that's a little bit opposite of me so I can put myself in new shoes.
Ah,
So
okay.
the idea of
You take you
being
and you add a little flaw to it.
right, exactly. So the idea of being a bard or somebody who's just over the top, always,
I
like
would shit
got a
my
silver
pants if you
tongue.
said you played a bard instead of a sorcerer. Like I was gonna shit my pants because I've told Mike before, and this isn't an insult. I just think that if I was to have to put you with a character, it would be a bard
Yeah, no,
because
I
you're
appreciate
charismatic,
it.
you're
Yeah,
lovable, you're hilarious, you're an entertainer.
right. And I think that too, I mean, that's why I kind of always try to be like something else because it's almost like too easy. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like I want
Yeah.
my character to be a little bit of a challenge to me, but at the same time, I think the idea of being a bard would be like me just being me and really
Mhm.
being able to like play and like utilize like my, I'd
Exactly.
say I have a little bit of a natural ability to kind of just like pull things out of thin air and work off of it, which is what, the Dale Carnegie class was always about. It was like, make a speech, but people would be like, oh, I practiced for like 5 hours yesterday. And I'm thinking to myself, like, I forgot what the topic was until I was standing in front of the podium and I was about to give my speech. I
And
was
you
like,
just ripped off the top of your head.
it's just 90 seconds of just like, okay, what's something that happened, in the arena of the topic, and go off of it and just
Right.
keep expanding details and like it's the idea of being a bard is just that, playing with your details that in front of your eyes, taking in, if you're sitting there, strumming your lute, and and one of your like companions just got punched in the face, make a joke about it, but in the form of like a little bit of a ditty or a little song or something, because you're giving them that like yeah.
Punch in the face.
How does it feel? I bet it hurts. I wouldn't know I'm over here. And then
I
boom,
love
plus
that.
one to their next roll.
That's right. Exactly. Exactly, dude. Do you think that'll be like your next character that you play as a bard?
I definitely want to be a bard.
Sounds
I
like you
feel like
thought about it.
it's funny too, because my my most recent character was a half orc warrior with split personality disorder. So
Nice.
Clay wanted us to all pick characters that had like flaw, like one very unique flaw. And I said, okay, I'm a half orc. I said, and I have a split personality, Clarence and Olga. Clarence is like a very shy, timid, like scaredy like cat. And then Olga is this big brute woman. Like
Yes,
basically
I
Clarence is
love
the
it.
human side and Olga is the orc side. So it's kind of like that like Jekyll and Hyde situation.
Yeah.
But oh man, dude, I
Was
had
there something that would trigger her swapping back and forth between
so
personalities?
Clarence was terrified of confrontation and battle. So
Oh, okay.
Clarence, as soon as Clarence would get hit by something, uh like Clarence and Olga's hair would like pull back and tie itself. And as
Whoa.
soon as everybody in the party saw that like Clarence's hair just got
Did
pulled
you get
back,
that from somewhere, or did you just come up with that on the
no,
fly?
it was like something that I just thought of.
Was that
I,
premeditated going into the game, or were you like, "I'm just gonna find that
it,
switch for
it
her"?
was premeditated only because I knew that I knew that my other characters, or that the characters in my party, were not going to know about the split personality disorder. So for me, I needed to give them a visual of what happens when the character changes, because Clarence would black out when Olga was in charge, and Olga would
Ah,
black out when Clarence was in charge, and they didn't know about each other.
okay.
So when Clarence would come to and there's a bunch of, like dead robbers on the
That's
like
funny.
road or something like there, and I'm covered in blood and holding like a battle axe, and everybody around me is just like, like looking at me like wide-eyed, and
Yeah,
Clarence would be like, "Oh God, what happened? Where are we? Like I don't know
that's
what's happening."
interesting. That's interesting.
Dude, I got to tell you though, it took so long for somebody, like for one of the other characters in the campaign, to explain to Clarence that when he blacked out, something else like took over and
They all were
fought.
just like, "Ah, I don't know, just a bunch of dead bodies. Moving on."
Well, so they would all kind of like look past it and try to like continue on with what was happening. So for half of the story,
That's funny.
Clarence was like, I don't know what's going on. We keep moving around, and every time I black out, I come to and we're in a new space and there's a bunch of dead people and stuff like
Yeah, what
that.
is going on? The
So,
story
but
from her perspective is so scary.
right, exactly. Like she only comes to when something just like, punched me in the face or something like that. But oh man, dude, I it's funny
That's
too
funny
because
that no one thought of that.
I just like now I want to play D&D. Like I wish I was
Yeah.
going from this to like back
To
into
playing.
like the sessions and stuff
Yeah.
because it's
That's
just so much fun.
I know, dude. I'm like, we're about to. So Dennis says we have about 2 or 3 more weeks left of our current campaign. Then we're done. Like that ends the longest characters I've ever played.
Wow.
Level 16, biggest character I've ever got to. 2 more sessions, we're done with them completely. It's a wrap. We're 2 weeks away, and it's emotional for me right now.
Oh
I'm like,
yeah.
it's sad because I'm like, I don't want to put him away. Like, I love him so much. But then there's another part of me that's excited because now I'm starting to brainstorm what I want to play in this new campaign. And I want to go, like, I kind of take a lot of my flavors from like comic books or like cool animes that I watch. This time I was watching a preview for Venom, and I was like, that looks cool. I wonder how could you make that into like a cool D&D thing? And it eventually led to me deciding I'm going to play a warlock that wanted power so bad to get some, I'm going to say probably his daughter. Maybe he lost his daughter and he gave up everything he could to these hags, and they took his eye out and put in their eye. And then every now and then this thing takes over his body. Like he
Damn.
loses kind of like that. But Venom, if I'm correct, Eddie Brock is conscious when he's being taken over. Like he knows the shit Venom does, right?
Right.
That's
right.
that's how I'm gonna play it.
Yeah.
Because he
Like
knew
he's not
the
in
consequences.
control, but he
Yes.
sees it. Right.
And that's what I want to play, the contradiction of like someone who's pretty, I would say he's lawful. He's a good person. He just would do anything to get his daughter back, right? He would go to the ends of the world, give up everything to get his daughter back. Doesn't change that he's a good person and doesn't intend to hurt people. Maybe he's going to kill people to get to his daughter, right? But the other side of him, those hags, when they take over, I want to add, like, I want them to take over, like, he has a voice now, and he sounds like this.
Yeah.
And, like, he starts to, like, his face starts to demorph into, like, an old lady or something. I don't know. Like, I want to make kind of like that Venom battle-esque character. Because, like, that character with your half-orc personality, that kind of sounds very similar.
Right.
That's
No,
funny.
dude, are you the type of person who, like, you're like, oh man, that's like a really good like D&D character, and you like kind of like jot it down, but you've got like a list of would be characters, but not enough people, or like, not
but they're
enough
all
campaigns
names
and
of
time.
like different characters from shows or animes or like from Hunter x Hunter.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen that?
Yes.
Hisoka. He would be so funny to role play. He goes from like being like evil, doesn't want to do anything, and then when he fights somebody who's like equal his power, he's like, "Oh yes." He gets like all creepy, and like that would be fun to play him in like a one shot.
Oh yeah.
And then there's like another character would be funny to play, like Charlie Kelly from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, like an illiterate buffoon, a bumbling buffoon, says funny shit all the time. Like that's my D&D list where I'm just like, Hisoka would be kind of funny to play.
I've always wanted to play a character that, because you know how like with warlock magic and like summoning characters, they're basically like plucked from like their like area or dimension and placed into like the warlock's control. I've always wanted to play a character that was plucked, but then like as the warlock was summoning this like creature, the warlock was killed, and instead of dispelling and sending like that creature back or what have you, the creature stays. And like that creature has no idea what's going on. It was just pulled from its world, and like now all of a sudden, like I just like every now and then, like I'll be like at work or something like that, putting away a load, putting boxes on a shelf or something, and I'll be like,
you're just like,
I'll be like, oh my god, like, dude,
you drop like the carton of milk all over the place mid thought.
I just like
stacking stuff.
I zone out. Right. I like zone out and think about like, characters that I want to build for D&D, and it's so fun. Like I love it. And then I'll like, I'll get back into like my group of my like, usual friends, and like we'll be like talking. I'll be like, "What do you guys think about a character like this?" And they'll be like, "Oh yeah, like that's really cool. Like I've been thinking about this and I've been thinking about this." And it's
Everybody's got all the
oh God,
characters they want to
right.
pull in the head.
I just love that it's like something that like, people who are really like into D&D like do that, where they'll like see something or just think about something, and it's
Yeah.
like that would be an amazing D&D character.
Yeah, right. Because listen, I am not a good writer. So people who put time and effort into like constructing, like you, dude, you put fucking 3 pages together on the background of your. I think when I did Ragnar, I said left at church when he was baby. Humans raised him in Church of Lathander. Paladin, good, yes, I think. Question mark.
Yeah,
Like that was my
absolutely.
background. That was it.
Ah, dude, I had like I had like a whole like scene, like a scene in like a
That's
TV
so
show
cool.
for Colfang,
I
and that's
should do
what.
that then. I should like challenge myself to do that for the warlock character. Like write like a typed out scene or something.
Absolutely,
Or do an
dude.
audio bit. Have you ever done like audio clips? Mike and I were doing that for a while.
Oh, so like you just like pull like
We would
audio
do like
from.
a backstory. Like we would like Dennis and I and Mike, when we play, we could either just read like the notes from last game, and then
Right.
Dennis gives us inspiration for it. One
Yes.
time I took audio samples from my character. I mapped out like a script between Ragnar and we didn't know who the creature was. It was just like an ogre sounding creature at a campfire. And Ragnar was telling the story of this time I did a thing with my wizard friend, which was what happened last week. So it was like a first person narrative of that. And what I did was I like recorded the intro, put background music to it, and we kind of just like put some like energy into it and also kind of like foreshadow stuff. Maybe him and Shalazar aren't together anymore. Why is he on the road with this ogre? Like, and give us more things to kind of like pull from.
Right, dude. That's awesome.
It was cool. Mike and I were doing that for a long time, and then him and I were like, we play every week. I'm tired.
Right.
It was
Yeah,
like a cool,
absolutely.
like we had like a nice like timing and rhythm down, and then I don't know, it's just fun. Everybody has like their own little. I think everybody's game is so much different, which is awesome because there's it's like limitless options
Oh
for
yeah, and you
games.
never know you never know the characters too in your party, like what they're gonna do, or what like the people are thinking.
Yeah,
Like if they're playing a character that's like a drunkard and like is kind of like wild card baby.
wild card, baby, wild
you know,
card. Woo!
yeah. See,
Have you ever played with
see.
like those kind of people? You know, the people that are the
Yes.
what are they like cringe serious, like the hobo killers they call them?
Right. Yes.
Have you ever played with
Absolutely.
them?
Um, I
I've
my
been very
buddy
fortunate.
my buddy Griffin played a character
Uh,
like that, and I was like, oh
mm,
man, like it
yeah,
added
rough.
so much to the story. I will give him that. Like there were so many like more instances where we had to like pull together as a team because of him, but it was like every now and then there would be just like something happening where we didn't there didn't need to be like an added aggression or something like that, and then all of a sudden here comes Griffin's character like smashing a bottle on somebody's head just because they like wanted to or something like that, and we're like,
That's
what are you
no.
doing?
I've been fortunate. We like it's only Mike and I, Mike,
Yeah.
me play, and Dennis DMs. So it's like way less variables involved when it's just us two, and not all those people wanting to play a hobo killer, bottle smashing over the head kind of
Right.
guy.
Yeah, I
That's funny.
think you definitely you pick up like so many personalities when you have a big group. It actually like I feel bad for Clay when he's DMing, when he has to kind of like take in everybody's like, what everybody's doing at the same time, because I can't imagine like how like with 6 people, like with 2 people, I'm sure it's much easier for a dentist to kind of like
To
figure
corral us,
out
yeah.
what's going on, right?
Yeah.
Whereas
With 5, it just starts to escalate, and you're like, "Oh,
right,
shit.
you
Oh,
got two
shit."
people who wanted to go to the trade center, you got 2 people who wanted to go to the
A lot.
bar, and then you got one guy who just like ran into a back alley. So
Yeah,
he's like,
right. Oh,
he's like a mom with a bunch of kids trying to
yeah,
like
trying
get
to corral them all together. What kind of advice would you give to somebody who wants to get into playing Dungeons& and Dragons?
um don't be afraid to go out of your like comfort zone, because I've seen a lot of people who are very new to Dungeons and Dragons, and obviously take a couple sessions to kind of like get the feel for what's going on. But when you're, you know, really into your character and you really play that character and you really have fun with it, you're gonna enjoy it so much more. Like, don't worry about what anybody else thinks. Like, I go in there thinking like, yeah, I want to be over the top. I want to have fun. I want to make people laugh.
Yep.
Um, Not easy for everybody, but you know, go in there and pick up on your group and go off what people are doing, because it makes it so much better when everybody in the group kind of like adds their flair.
Feeds
You know,
off each other.
there's no wrong way to play your character. I mean, even if you're a hobo killer, if you go in there and you are destructive, at least you're doing it. Like, it's
Hey, also, there are gonna be consequences for your actions,
yeah,
okay?
100%.
You're not just
There's
gonna get off scot-free killing
right.
hobos in a
Yeah.
city, okay?
Remember to be good to your team, because if you are in that circumstance, your team's what's going to have to get you out of that circumstances, or you'll be surrounded by like 6 guards that are like, we're going to
Yep.
kill you. We're going to kill you.
What is one thing that you do to help you stay role playing with your character?
That is a very difficult question, because for me, I can't speak for everybody, but as soon as I get into that setting or that atmosphere of like sitting around like our table getting ready to play Dungeons and Dragons, as soon as the DM starts picking back up, like the the visual cues in my eyes start to dim, and all I hear is like the chattering of a town circle, and I just see my characters like looking at everybody else's characters, and I might be sitting next to Danny, but I see Danny's character, and I might be sitting over here, and just like let yourself kind of like disappear into it all. Like, just have fun with it, man. It's so awesome to just zen. Go zen with it. 'Cause-
What is your what hold on, what was I gonna say? I had a good question. Oh, what is your favorite thing about Dungeons and Dragons? What is your favorite thing about it?
uh it's it's the it's running around with your friends or people who are very have similar interests to you. We all have similar interests because we all wound up playing Dungeons and Dragons. So being surrounded by groups of people who want to be there and want to do that and really go in and have fun with it is as well what it's all about. It's amazing to be, surrounded by the people who want to be there, you know what I mean? Like, that's what we're all there for, and we're all there to have a good time and make each other laugh and save the princess from another castle.
That's right, dude. Exactly. Exactly. Dave, what a
Corey,
good person.
hey, right back
I
at you,
didn't think
brother.
we were gonna talk an hour about Dungeons and Dragons, but we did it, buddy.
That's all right.
It was smooth. I was eventually gonna ask you. I got one more question. Tell me why that we'll. This is the last question. We can end on
Okay.
this one. Tell me why Munster cheese is the supreme cheese.
So, it's not.
Uh, like I said, this podcast is over. Thank you. Thanks for coming on, I guess. Thanks, Dave.
Doo-doo.